Unfit to practice medicine, my father read aloud from the formal complaint he'd filed with the state medical board, his voice carrying the theatrical gravitas of a man who spent his career delivering verdicts from the bench. Reckless diagnostic methods, unstable professional conduct, pattern of insubordination toward established medical protocols. My mother held her phone steady, recording the moment for the family group chat where my siblings would watch their sister's medical career be dismantled in real time. But why did I remain silent through their performance, and why did the medical board chairman, Dr. Harold Okonkwo, go completely still when he opened my case file during the preliminary review hearing? Dr. Adeyemi. His voice had changed, no longer the neutral tone of an administrator reviewing a routine complaint. I need to disclose something before we proceed. My father leaned forward. Whatever she's told you. She hasn't told me anything. But I recognize this name. Dr. Vivian Adeyemi. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You diagnosed my daughter 18 months ago. Autoimmune encephalitis. 6 specialists had missed it. She was being prepared for psychiatric commitment when you intervened. The conference room went silent. My daughter is alive because of you. She's back in college, living her life, because you saw what no one else could see. He turned to my parents with visible confusion. Why is your family trying to destroy your career? My father's confident expression flickered. This is a conflict of interest, he started. This is a preliminary review of a complaint that appears to be filed in bad faith. I'm recusing myself from the formal process, but I'm not recusing myself from asking questions. Dr. Okonkwo set down the file. What is actually happening here? My family had been trying to control my career since medical school. My father, Judge Richard Adeyemi, had wanted me to pursue law, specifically, corporate law, where his connections could fast-track my career and his legacy could extend through another generation. My mother, a former litigator turned political consultant, had envisioned me as a judicial nominee by 40. Medicine was never part of their plan. Doctors work for hospitals, my father had pronounced when I'd announced my decision. Lawyers and judges run the systems those hospitals operate within. You're choosing to be a cog instead of a machine. I'm choosing to help people directly instead of abstractly. You're choosing to disappoint your family. The disappointment had never faded. Through medical school, residency, and my eventual specialization in diagnostic medicine, my parents had maintained a constant undercurrent of disapproval. Every achievement was met with reminders of what I could have accomplished in law. Every success was reframed as evidence of wasted potential. When I'd turned 35 without a husband, without children, without the conventional markers they valued, their disappointment had curdled into something darker. The immediate trigger for the complaint had been my refusal to misdiagnose a patient. My father's business partner, a wealthy real estate developer named Harrison Whitmore, had a son with a drug problem. The son, Bradley, had been in and out of rehabilitation facilities, accumulating a medical record that documented addiction, erratic behavior, and multiple overdoses. When Bradley had been brought to my hospital with severe neurological symptoms, the assumption was obvious: another drug-related episode. The emergency team had begun treatment protocols for overdose. But something had seemed wrong to me. The symptoms didn't quite fit. The timeline was inconsistent. When I'd ordered additional testing over the objections of the attending physician, I discovered Bradley had a brain tumor, slow-growing, operable, but absolutely not drug-related. The tumor had been causing behavioral changes that had been misattributed to addiction for years. Bradley Whitmore hadn't been a drug addict. He'd been a young man with an undiagnosed medical condition, treated like a failure instead of a patient. My diagnosis had saved his life. It had also embarrassed my father's business partner, whose family had been telling everyone for years that Bradley was a disappointment with a drug problem. The correct diagnosis revealed that they'd been wrong and cruel. Harrison Whitmore wanted the diagnosis changed. My father wanted me to cooperate. I refused. The complaint had been filed 3 weeks later. My father had used his judicial connections to file directly with the medical board, bypassing normal channels. The complaint alleged that I had a pattern of reckless diagnostic methods, ordering excessive tests, contradicting other physicians, reaching conclusions that defied established medical consensus. The examples cited were cases I was proud of: the autoimmune encephalitis case that Dr. Okonkwo's daughter had suffered from, a rare genetic condition I'd identified in a child who'd been misdiagnosed with behavioral disorders, a cardiac condition I'd caught that 3 cardiologists had missed. In each case, I'd been right. In each case, my diagnosis had saved a life or prevented serious harm. My father had framed my accuracy as recklessness. The preliminary hearing continued after Dr. Okonkwo's recusal disclosure. He remained present as an observer while a vice chair, Dr. Patricia Morrison, took over the review. But the dynamics had shifted. The complaint that was supposed to destroy my career had been filed in front of someone whose daughter I'd saved. Dr. Adeyemi, the complaint alleges that you have a pattern of contradicting other physicians' diagnoses. How do you respond? I respond by pointing out that in each cited case, my diagnosis was eventually confirmed as correct. The patients cited in this complaint are alive and healthy because I saw what others missed. The complaint characterizes this as reckless. Reckless would be accepting a wrong diagnosis because it was easier than challenging it. Reckless would be letting Bradley Whitmore undergo unnecessary psychiatric treatment while a tumor grew in his brain. Reckless would be letting Dr. Okonkwo's daughter be committed to a psychiatric facility for an autoimmune condition. You seem very confident in your abilities. I'm confident in my results. Every case cited in that complaint ended with a correct diagnosis and a positive patient outcome. That's not recklessness, that's medicine done right. My father attempted to redirect. The issue isn't whether her diagnoses were eventually correct. The issue is her methods, ordering excessive tests, contradicting colleagues, creating chaos in medical teams. Dr. Morrison looked at him coolly. Judge Adeyemi, you're not a physician. You're not qualified to assess medical methods. I'm qualified to assess professional conduct. You're qualified to assess judicial conduct. Medical conduct is assessed by medical professionals. She turned back to me. Dr. Adeyemi, the complaint mentions insubordination toward established protocols. Can you address this? Protocols are guidelines, not laws. When protocols fail patients, when following established procedures leads to wrong diagnoses, physicians have an obligation to deviate from those protocols. That's not insubordination. That's the practice of medicine. Your colleagues describe you as difficult to work with. My colleagues who miss diagnoses that I caught describe me as difficult. My colleagues who value accuracy describe me as thorough. I paused. I'd rather be difficult and correct than agreeable and wrong. The hearing took an unexpected turn when Dr. Okonkwo requested permission to speak. I know I've recused myself, but I'd like to provide context that seems relevant. Dr. Morrison nodded. Proceed. My daughter, Sarah, was sick for 2 years before Dr. Adeyemi saw her. 2 years of declining function, psychiatric evaluations, medications that didn't work. 6 specialists, 6, examined her. None of them found the autoimmune condition that was attacking her brain. He turned to face my parents. Dr. Adeyemi saw Sarah for 45 minutes. She ordered tests that other doctors had dismissed as unnecessary. She found what everyone else had missed. My daughter went from being prepared for long-term psychiatric care to receiving treatment that restored her completely. That's one case, my father started. One case that saved a life. One case that represents exactly the kind of medicine we should be encouraging, not punishing. Dr. Okonkwo's voice hardened. Judge Adeyemi, I've reviewed this complaint thoroughly. Every case cited as evidence of recklessness is actually evidence of diagnostic excellence. Your daughter found conditions that specialists missed. She saved lives that other doctors had given up on. Her methods. Her methods are unconventional because she thinks differently than other physicians. That difference is what makes her valuable. Filing complaints to punish her for being too good at her job is not just wrong, it's dangerous. It discourages exactly the kind of thorough, independent thinking that medicine desperately needs. The truth about my father's motivations emerged gradually. The complaint wasn't really about my medical practice. It was about control. My entire family operated within my father's sphere of influence. My brother was a prosecutor in a district where my father had connections. My sister was a corporate attorney at a firm my father's friends controlled. My younger brother was a judicial clerk positioned for eventual appointment. I was the only one who'd escaped. Medicine was beyond his reach, a field where his judicial connections meant nothing, where my success or failure depended entirely on my own abilities. My refusal to misdiagnose Bradley Whitmore wasn't just an embarrassment to his business partner. It was proof that I couldn't be controlled. That I would prioritize patients over politics, truth over convenience, my own judgment over his demands. The medical board complaint was punishment for independence. Dr. Morrison requested a recess to review additional documentation. During the break, my mother approached me in the hallway. This doesn't have to be difficult, Vivian. Your father just wants what's best for the family. What's best for the family is apparently destroying my career because I correctly diagnosed a brain tumor. Harrison Whitmore is an important connection. Harrison Whitmore's son had a tumor. I found it. That should have been the end of the story. But the way you found it, contradicting other doctors, making the family look foolish, I made them look foolish by being right? By discovering that their son wasn't a drug addict but a patient with a medical condition. I shook my head. The Whitmores should be thanking me. Instead, they're helping Dad try to destroy my license. If you would just apologize. For what? For practicing medicine correctly? For saving a life? I turned to face her fully. I'm not apologizing for being good at my job. I'm not apologizing for refusing to participate in a cover-up. And I'm not apologizing for being the one child you couldn't control. The hearing resumed with testimony from unexpected sources. Dr. Okonkwo had made calls during the recess. Patients whose lives I'd saved, or their families, had been contacted. Several had agreed to provide immediate statements. Mrs. Whitmore would like to speak, Dr. Morrison announced. My father's expression shifted. Harrison Whitmore's wife, Bradley's mother, had entered the hearing room. I understand my husband has been involved in this complaint, Margaret Whitmore said quietly. I want to be clear that he doesn't speak for me. Mrs. Whitmore, my father started. Judge Adeyemi, please don't interrupt. She turned to the board. Dr. Adeyemi saved my son's life. For 3 years, we thought Bradley was a drug addict. We sent him to rehab 5 times. We threatened to disown him. We treated him like a criminal instead of a patient. Her voice broke slightly. Dr. Adeyemi was the first physician who looked at our son and saw something other than addiction. She ordered tests that other doctors said were unnecessary. She found a tumor that explained everything, the mood swings, the erratic behavior, the symptoms we'd blamed on drugs. My husband was embarrassed. He'd spent years telling people our son was a failure. Finding out Bradley was sick, that we'd been wrong, was hard for him to accept. She looked directly at my father. But his embarrassment doesn't make Dr. Adeyemi a bad doctor. It makes her a thorough one. The testimony continued with families of other patients I diagnosed. Parents of the child with the rare genetic condition, finally able to get appropriate treatment after years of behavioral interventions that hadn't worked. The husband of a woman whose cardiac condition I.D. caught, a condition that would have killed her within months without intervention. A young man with Lyme disease that had been dismissed as depression, now fully recovered and working as an engineer. Each story followed the same pattern: symptoms that had been misdiagnosed or dismissed, lives that had been deteriorating, and a moment when I'd seen what others had missed. Dr. Adeyemi ordered a test my previous doctor said was pointless, one patient testified. That pointless test found the tumor that was killing me. I'm alive because she didn't accept the easy answer. My father attempted one final intervention. These testimonials are irrelevant to the procedural concerns in the complaint. The issue is whether Dr. Adeyemi follows proper protocols, Judge Adeyemi. Dr. Morrison's voice was sharp. You filed a complaint alleging that your daughter is unfit to practice medicine. The board has heard testimony from multiple patients whose lives she saved through the exact methods you recharacterizing as reckless. You have not provided any evidence of patient harm, only evidence that she challenges other physicians and orders thorough testing. The medical establishment. The medical establishment makes mistakes. That's why we have physicians like your daughter who catch those mistakes. She closed the file. This complaint is being dismissed. Furthermore, I'm referring it for review as a potential bad faith filing. Bad faith? You filed a complaint against your own daughter because she correctly diagnosed your business partner's son. You characterized life-saving diagnostic work as recklessness. You attempted to use this board as a weapon in what appears to be a personal vendetta, Dr. Morrison stood. The board takes bad faith complaints seriously, Judge Adeyemi. Filing false or malicious complaints against physicians harms the entire medical system. The aftermath was comprehensive. The complaint was not only dismissed, it was publicly noted as baseless. The board issued a statement acknowledging that the cases cited as evidence of recklessness were actually examples of exemplary diagnostic medicine. My father's involvement in filing a false complaint was referred to the State Bar's Ethics Committee. A sitting judge using his position to attack a family member's professional license raised serious questions about judicial conduct. Harrison Whitmore's attempts to interfere with medical records were reported to law enforcement. Trying to pressure a physician to change a diagnosis was fraud, and his connections couldn't make that disappear. My family's attack had backfired completely. The family reckoning happened at my parents' house 2 weeks later. I hadn't intended to attend, but my grandmother, the one family member who supported my medical career from the beginning, had asked me to come. She was 91 years old and had things she wanted to say. Richard, she addressed my father, I've watched you try to control all your children. The others let you. Vivian didn't. And instead of being proud of her independence, you tried to destroy her. Mother, this isn't. I'm not finished. Her voice was still strong despite her age. I raised you to be successful. I didn't raise you to be cruel. Filing a complaint against your own daughter because she's good at her job? Trying to take her license because she wouldn't lie for your business partner? That's not success. That's spite. She embarrassed the family. She saved lives. How is that embarrassing? My grandmother shook her head. The only embarrassment here is you, Richard. You and your need to control everything. Your daughter has saved more lives than your courtroom ever will, and you tried to stop her because you couldn't be the one in charge of her success. The reconciliation with my family never fully happened. My father never apologized. He maintained that his concerns about my methods were legitimate, that the complaint was filed in good faith, that the outcome didn't prove he was wrong. My mother enabled his narrative, as she always had. My siblings stayed neutral, unwilling to challenge our father's authority, unwilling to support his attack on me, trapped in the middle ground where family loyalty conflicts with basic ethics. Only my grandmother remained fully on my side. "They'll understand eventually," she told me during one of our last conversations before she passed. "Or they won't. Either way, you saved lives. That matters more than their approval." The patients keep coming. Word spread after the board hearing. Families who'd been told their loved ones were untreatable, patients who'd been dismissed or misdiagnosed, people who'd lost hope in a medical system that had failed them. They found their way to my practice. I can't save everyone. Medicine doesn't work that way. But I can look carefully, think independently, and see what others miss. Dr. Okonkwo's daughter, Sarah, graduated from college last spring. She's applying to medical school. She wants to specialize in diagnostic medicine. "You showed me that doctors can be detectives," she told me at her graduation party. "That the right diagnosis can change everything. I want to do what you did for me." Her father watched our conversation with tears in his eyes. The board chairman whose daughter I'd saved, who witnessed my own family try to destroy my career for the crime of being too good at my job. Bradley Whitmore visits sometimes. His tumor was removed successfully. He's completed a degree in social work, focused on helping families dealing with chronic illness, particularly families who've had conditions misdiagnosed. "I spent years thinking I was a failure," he told me once. "My parents thought I was a failure. Everyone thought the drugs were the problem, not the symptom." "How are things with your parents now?" "Complicated. My dad still won't fully admit he was wrong. My mom tries to bridge the gap." He smiled slightly. "Sound familiar?" "Too familiar. At least we have this, we know the truth. We know we weren't failures or addicts or disappointments. We were patients who needed diagnosis, not judgment. You gave us that." The wall in my office holds no photographs. Instead, it holds letters, from patients, from families, from people whose lives changed because someone looked carefully when others had given up. My parents' complaint is framed among them. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder: the people who should support you most can become the people who try hardest to destroy you. The institutions designed to protect quality can be weaponized against it. The only defense is the work itself, the lives saved, the diagnoses made, the patients who walk out healthier than they walked in. My father tried to take my license. The board chair's daughter was alive because of that license. My family called me reckless. The evidence showed I was thorough. They wanted to control my career. Instead, they proved its value to everyone watching. They filed a complaint calling me unfit to practice medicine. They alleged recklessness, instability, insubordination. They recorded it for the family chat, celebrating the destruction of my career. Then the board chair opened my file and recognized my name. I saved his daughter when 6 specialists had failed. The complaint meant to end my career became proof of its value. The cases cited as recklessness were cases of lives saved. The parents who wanted control discovered they'd picked a fight they couldn't win. The board dismissed the complaint. The ethics committee investigated my father. And I kept practicing medicine, diagnosing what others miss, saving who I can, proving every day that being too good at your job isn't recklessness. It's the whole point.